Imagine for a moment you could just wipe the slate clean.
Hmm.
No inherited traditions, no history, no existing theories. What would a truly human society look like if you built it just based on us, on our core human attributes?
That's a huge question, isn't it? It really makes you stop and think about, well, everything we assume about how societies work.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what we're digging into today. We've got this really unusual document. It's Fan Zuming's Human Society Construction Manual and a study guide that goes with it.
Right, and this isn't, your typical political manifesto or philosophical text. It's presented as a literal blueprint.
Yeah, a step-by-step guide for building what the author calls a real human society.
It's incredibly ambitious. So our mission here is to, well, unpack the biggest ideas, the most surprising bits from this manual.
We want to get into its very specific definition of human society, look at the, frankly, almost unbelievable benefits it claims, and the very demanding steps it lays out for actually building it. And, of course, the massive implications this whole thing has for how we live. We'll also touch on what it takes to be one of the chosen ones meant to do this.
And the risks. The manual's very upfront about the risks.
Definitely. And as we go through this, keep in mind, it promises this incredible harmony, this utopia almost, but the level of control, the sheer rigor involved, it does make you wonder about the trade-offs.
There's a definite tension there.
So yeah, get ready to maybe question some basic assumptions about society. We'll explore what this manual sees as the absolute core human attributes needed for a stable, thriving society. Okay, so starting point. This idea of a real human society. We need to grasp what the manual actually means by that, because it says it's very different from what we have now.
Right. It's very precise. The manual defines it as living conditions that are established based on human attributes.
Yeah.
And crucially, designed specifically to protect those attributes.
Based on human attributes.
And the key thing, the absolute foundation, according to the manual, is what it calls the human thinking function.
Human thinking function.
Yeah. It's almost like a biological or cognitive baseline.
Yeah.
Less about social contracts and more about our inherent mental setup.
So it's not just any bunch of people living together then. What does it specifically say it isn't?
Well, it draws a sharp contrast. It says this real human society is not built on theologies or any secular theories.
Okay.
And it's not controlled by religions, political parties, families, or, any kind of special interest group.
Right.
In fact, it goes really far. It even says a cannibalistic society, while obviously made up of biological humans,
Yeah.
isn't a human society in the strict sense.
Why not?
Because it fails that core test. It doesn't protect fundamental human attributes, especially that thinking function.
Okay, you mentioned the human thinking function is key. Can you break that down a bit more? What is it and why is it so central to this whole idea?
Sure. The manual describes it as having a few core components. There's the belief function, the sense of mission function, and the logic function.
Belief, mission, logic.
Yeah. Think of them as maybe the basic operating system of the mind. The belief function isn't necessarily religious faith, but more like our capacity for conviction, for purpose.
Okay.
The sense of mission is that drive we have towards shared goals, collective efforts. And the logic function is our ability for rational, verifiable thought.
Mm.
And the manual argues these functions are the very reason humans develop knowledge, create wealth, and become, in its words, the greatest and noblest life.
Wow, quite a claim.
It is. And it also notes that, the average person generally still possesses this function. It's inherent, but it needs the right conditions to flourish.
That's very specific, almost biological, as you said. But what about, the messiness when belief and logic clash? Or when someone's thinking function isn't quite optimal, does it address that?
It does, later on. The core idea here in the foundation phase is that the society itself must be structured to protect and nurture these functions. Dysfunction is something addressed in the maintenance phase, which we can get into.
Okay. And it's just so different from how we normally think about society, right? Based on history or laws or shared stories. This is internal, biological programming almost.
Exactly. It's a complete shift, not building on tradition or ideology, but on what the manual sees as our fundamental cognitive wiring.
Now, the manual definitely doesn't undersell the importance of this. It calls the builders chosen ones, people who can lead mankind out of childhood, high stakes.
Extremely high stakes, but it also comes with this really blunt safety warning section.
Right. What does that say?
It's pretty chilling, actually. It says the builders won't rest easy, they won't get any reward, and they will face unprecedented risks.
Unprecedented risks?
Yes. and various obstacles, and specifically attacks from the ideological slaves of various faith groups.
Yeah.
It warns building this society will trigger major changes unseen in 10,000 years.
Wow. So attacks, no reward, massive upheaval.
And it says these changes will inevitably affect the dignity and interests of existing groups built on other ideas.
Okay, so despite these huge, huge challenges and warnings, what's the payoff? What are the unprecedented and unimaginable benefits it talks about? Why would anyone sign up for this?
Well, the promised benefits are equally grand. The manual lists quite a few.
Like what?
For every single person, it promises the ability to think healthfully, to reach their full potential, to hit the highest standard set, basically becoming the best version of human they can be.
Okay, individual potential.
And then societally, it claims humans will become equals to one another and live in harmony on a great and noble level. So, moving beyond conflict.
Harmony, equality.
And it promises the eradication of what it calls common evils, like groups blindly and indiscriminately harvesting dignity, gaining benefits, and hunting others.
Harvesting dignity, hunting others. What does that mean exactly?
It seems to refer to any system, economic, social, political, where some people exploit, demean, or essentially prey on others for their own gain. So an end to that kind of systemic exploitation.
An end to exploitation and conflict.
And finally, it predicts rapid, peaceful progress. Development of knowledge, science, technology, material wealth, all accelerating peacefully.
That sounds utopian, frankly. Does the manual acknowledge how often these grand promises fall short? Or the risk of unintended consequences?
It doesn't really frame it as utopian in the sense of being unrealistic. Its argument is more that previous failures happened because they lacked this rigorous scientific approach based on human attributes.
So it thinks this time, with this method, it's achievable.
That seems to be the core belief, that the rigor and the grounding in human thinking function make these benefits attainable, despite the immense risks. It presents it as a necessary, albeit dangerous, step for humanity.
All right, so if someone is willing to take this on, the manual lays out a very detailed preparation phase. It doesn't just jump into building.
No, it's incredibly meticulous. And it starts, interestingly, with the builders themselves, their mental preparation.
Mental prep, what does that involve? Sounds intense.
It is. The steps include things like taking a bath, going on a diet, and dedicating at least one full day to doing nothing irrelevant.
A kind of purification.
Seems like it. Followed by deep self-reflection to absolutely confirm they're willing to build this society at all costs.
At all costs.
They have to reconfirm they understand human nature properly, that they're not doing it for selfish reasons or improper benefits.
Okay.
And they have to fully accept the possibility of attacks, even total failure. But even if they fail, they must commit to leaving behind a spark of spiritual progress, some lessons for the future. It's about total, selfless dedication.
Wow. That's a heavy commitment before you even lay the first brick, so to speak. What about practical stuff? What materials do they need?
Beyond the personal readiness, yes, practical materials are key. The manual talks about preparing functional teaching material.
Teaching materials. For what?
These are designed specifically to activate, develop, and maintain those core functions. Belief, sense of mission, logic, and sometimes even to rescue or restore people's normal thinking functions.
So like a curriculum for the mind.
Kind of, yeah. A universal toolkit for healthy thinking in this new society. And alongside that, they need promotional materials for the wider community.
Propaganda.
Well, the manual frames it as materials designed to break through existing group loyalties and inform people about why this thinking function is so important and about reaching the general human standard of the times, educating the public on the new fundamentals.
Okay, so mental prep, teaching materials. What about the actual structure? Laws, frameworks?
That's the next step. They need to complete and publish the basic law of human society.
The Constitution, basically.
Yes, covering the core principles. Human attributes, society's functions, why the builders are motivated, and importantly, how to deal with any anti-human societal influences. And alongside that, a written social framework. This outlines the ideology, the power system, and people's rights and obligations. The whole structure needs to be documented.
This level of pre-planning, it's just so different from how societies usually evolve, isn't it? It's like designing a machine.
Exactly. It's less organic evolution, more deliberate engineering. Like blueprinting a skyscraper from the foundation up, ensuring every part serves the core function, rather than just adding rooms onto an old house.
Okay, so preparation done. Then comes construction or reconstruction. This often means transforming existing societies, right? And this is where it gets really interesting, maybe controversial regarding people from the old system.
Yes, the approach is quite unique. It explicitly states not investigating past crimes or liquidating those who benefited from the previous systems, state, religion, political parties, whatever.
No reckoning, no justice for past wrongs. That seems surprising.
It does. Instead, the manual says they are to be properly settled.
Properly settled, what does that mean? And why no investigation? That seems like it could cause a lot of resentment.
The manual gives a very specific reason. The sole purpose, it says, is to prevent their personal interests from being packaged as ethnic, national, or doctrinal theories.
So to stop them from rallying support based on old identities and causing conflict.
Exactly. It's about preventing future divisions, even if it means skipping retrospective justice. The manual compares it to the practicalities of urban renewal, demolition, cleaning, and resettlement work. Pragmatism over retribution.
Okay, pragmatic, but potentially tough to swallow for some. What about the actual groups, the religions, the parties? Are they just dissolved?
No. Again, surprisingly lenient in a way. They're given ample opportunity to improve, presumably to align with the new principles based on human thinking function.
And if they can't or won't?
Then, adult members can choose to enter designated closed areas of practice, research, or hibernation. It mentions places like the Papal District or Temple as examples.
Hibernation.
Yeah. The idea seems to be that they can continue their practices in isolation where, as the manual puts it, time has worn away their poisonous effects and the laws of inheritance have diluted their acquisitions. It's a long-term phasing out rather than immediate abolition.
A very patient approach to ideological change, but it also encourages new groups.
Yes, definitely. It actively encourages the creation of new religions, political parties, think tanks, but with a specific focus.
Which is?
Developing knowledge about the faith function and the sense of mission function. And it promises generous reward for breakthroughs in understanding these aspects of the human thinking function.
So old ways are contained or phased out. New ways focused on the core functions are encouraged.
That's the idea. It's managing the transition very carefully.
It's such a strange mix, isn't it? Non-punitive towards past actors, yet incredibly controlling about the ideological direction. What are the ethics of that? It prioritizes future harmony above all else, it seems.
It really does. It's a radical strategy, sacrificing traditional justice, to try and ensure a smoother, less bloody transition to this new societal model based purely on the thinking function. The future focus is absolute.
All right, so the society is built or rebuilt. But it's not like the work is done. The manual moves into detection and debugging. Sounds like software development.
It really does have that feel. It's not a set-it-and-forget-it system. Constant monitoring is required.
What's the main thing they're testing or debugging?
Primarily, the power system and the social framework itself.
Yeah.
They need constant checks to make sure they're actually doing what they're supposed to do.
Which includes?
Providing necessities, obviously, maintaining safety. Crucially, fostering those healthy thinking functions. The manual suggests this should lead to basically no crime and widespread harmony.
Zero crime, really.
That seems to be the ideal benchmark. Also, ensuring people can freely join or leave groups. The example given is like sports teams, suggesting low-stakes affiliations.
Interesting.
And finally, checking that the society facilitates rapid, peaceful progress in knowledge and wealth. It's a performance check against the initial promises.
Okay, so what happens if something does go wrong? Say a crime actually happens or some political disagreement flares up. How does this society troubleshoot?
The approach is, again, very different. If a crime occurs, even a rare criminal, religious, or political crime, the first step is investigation.
Okay, investigation like normal.
Not exactly. They investigate physiological and health reasons from the perspective of human thinking function.
So they see crime as a symptom of a faulty thinking function, like a medical issue.
Precisely. Less a moral failing, more a bug in the individual's cognitive system. And it's treated as such, handled by experts using professional knowledge, not necessarily by a traditional justice system. Diagnosis and treatment rather than punishment.
That's a massive shift. Does the manual anticipate specific ways this system might fail or be challenged? What are the foreseeable failures?
It does anticipate some. It states clearly that old control methods, fabricated theories simply can't exist. But it expects that power lovers might still try to interfere.
And what happens to them?
Interestingly, only investigations are conducted. No direct action against them is mentioned, perhaps assuming the system's health. prevents them gaining traction.
Hmm.
People might still try to seize power illegitimately or promote vague paradise on Earth, ideas that lack scientific backing. But the manual insists only qualified experts can respond to these to prevent destabilization. No amateur societal tinkering allowed.
So how does it try to prevent these issues in the first place, keep the system debugged?
Through what it calls general exclusion methods, basically preventative measures.
Such as?
Frequent public education constantly reinforcing common sense about humans and human society, according to its definitions.
Okay.
Mandating qualified, certified people for building and maintaining society. Explicitly forbidding reckless experimentation like in the childhood of mankind.
Right, professionalism.
Rewarding and legally processing new physiological knowledge about humans. And requiring qualification certificates for anyone involved in political or religious activities.
Qualification certificates for politics or religion.
Yes. And key figures even need to submit an annual report on thinking function status.
A brain health checkup for politicians.
Essentially, yes. Ensuring those in positions of influence are cognitively healthy according to the manual standards. It's all part of this scientific, almost medicalized approach to societal management.
It really does replace law and politics as we know them with something more like public health management for the collective mind.
That's a good way to put it. A total paradigm shift.
Okay, finally, the manual talks about unfinished business. What's left after all this construction and debugging? And you said there's a strong stance on knowledge here.
Yes. This part really emphasizes the importance of ongoing knowledge development. The core principle is that certain types of knowledge must remain open.
Which types?
Knowledge about plants for agriculture, animals for husbandry, but especially human physiological knowledge. The very knowledge needed to build and maintain these human living conditions.
It has to be open. Why?
To allow people to continuously develop and increase new knowledge, leading to more precise scientific applications. It needs to evolve.
So when it says open, what does that mean practically, particularly for this human physiological knowledge?
It means it must be open source and free.
Like software.
Exactly. Available for anyone to access, question, argue about, and refine. The manual justifies this by citing the greatness and nobility of human beings and their important position in the universe. It's presented as almost a sacred duty to keep this knowledge transparent and growing.
Open, verifiable, constantly improving knowledge about ourselves as the bedrock. And what does it stand against most fiercely?
It firmly opposes, eliminates, and promptly punishes anyone or any group that tries to fabricate human knowledge or God's requirements and apply them to society.
So pseudoscience or imposed dogma is public enemy number one.
Absolutely. Along with any other fabricated knowledge, there's zero tolerance for anything that isn't verifiable and open, especially when it comes to defining human nature or society. Rigorous scientific epistemology is paramount.
This idea of mandatory open knowledge, especially about human nature, and the aggressive stance against pseudoscience or closed systems, what does that imply for things people currently consider private beliefs or sacred truths? It seems to erase that boundary.
It really does. It suggests a future where truth about humans is a public, constantly refined scientific project, leaving very little space for subjective, private, or revealed truths to dictate how society is run. Implications for current religions or even personal philosophies are potentially huge.
So we've walked through this incredible, intense blueprint from Fanzu Meng, from redefining society based on the human thinking function, through the demanding prep and construction, the constant debugging, and this final emphasis on open knowledge.
Yeah, it's quite a journey. The deep dive really shows this vision. It's simultaneously, utopian in what it promises, harmony, progress, full potential.
Right.
But also deeply, maybe disturbingly, authoritarian in its methods. The meticulous control, the scientific rationalism pushed to an extreme, the immense burden on the builders, and the conformity seemingly required of everyone else.
It's that blend of aspiration and almost clinical oversight, isn't it?
Exactly.
So, for you listening, what do you make of all this? The manual claims our current societies are basically humanity's childhood. Is this manual a viable path out of that? Or is it more of a fascinating, maybe cautionary thought experiment? One that highlights just how complex humans are, maybe too complex for any single blueprint.
It certainly raises questions.
Think about it. If you personally had to design a society purely to protect those human attributes, that thinking function, what would your first step be? And maybe more importantly, how would you even begin to convince anyone else to join you on something so radical, so demanding, so completely unprecedented?